Hello, my name is Liana Guberman, and you're listening to VOICEtalks.
Hello and welcome. My name is Zach Singerman, and you are listening to episode 7, where I interview my very first soprano, Liana Guberman. Liana was born in New York City to a musical family and was immersed in classical music and musical theater from a young age. A music teacher at school discovered her talent and encouraged her to pursue singing at the Tanglewood Summer Music Institute, where she first discovered her love for performing classical music. Possessing a strong work ethic and natural ability to sing well, Liana was guided by wise teachers at Boston University who steered her away from pursuing operatic repertoire in order to focus on musicality and expression and language through an immersion in lieder until her graduate studies at SUNY Purchase, where the opera program there cast her in leading roles for all of their productions and prepared her to embark on her operatic career in her hometown of New York City with the Mannes Opera program. Since those early days, she's made her mark on the operatic world with her sweet, sonorous soprano, as it's been referred, winning and placing several top competitions like the Metropolitan National Council auditions, the Jensen's Maryland Lyric Opera competition, the Gerda-Lissner competition, the Licia Albanese Puccini competition, as well as her participation in leading young artist programs such as the Music Academy of the West under full scholarship, and her recent tenure with Palm Beach Opera as a resident artist there. Liana has also served as a founding member of Loft Opera and Bear Operas, paving the way for how opera is experienced today. Singing The Countess and Marriage of Figaro and Mimi in Loft's productions. That was for La Boheme. And of course, as a resident artist with Bear Opera, she's preparing to perform Fanny in Rossini's La Cambiale di Matrimonio this November. Liana and I meet over Skype to discuss specific fundamental topics in singing surrounding breath, how we use it properly to produce those long legato lines, keeping the voice spinning, how it changes when we sing softer or higher, and how we maintain stamina to sing for hours on end, unamplified on stage over an orchestra. Later, I give Liana an opera quiz to test her knowledge of famous sopranos of the past, and we both give our best renditions of our favorite arias from other voice types. But first, let's hear what Liana can do with that sonorous soprano of hers in an excerpt of the Don Pasquale duet opposite baritone Soo-Chan Kim during a concert for Bear Opera. I think this is a stellar example of Liana's singing, as it allows us to observe the spinning connection to the support that is constantly sustained. And while the voice is sweet and beautiful, it also emits an electric quality, especially at the top of a range, that I think only the greatest singers can achieve. We can also hear how she uses the music to great dramatic effect and puts on a clinic for students of bel canto and how to maintain the line while singing through a lot of words in the parlando section of this excerpt, as well as how to sing fioritura not only beautifully and musically, but also with great dramatic intention. I was really excited to interview Liana and get her secrets on breath control and learn about her thought process when it comes to performing. So now, on to the interview. Okay, so this is a podcast about centering on like the technical side of things, because I think singers in like your pool, those just getting started who are singing really well and getting rehired and stuff, are doing exactly that. They're singing extremely well, better than some of the singers on the big stages that we see, especially those who on big stages they're contracted sometimes 4 and 5 years ahead of time. And many times that I have the experience of going to places like the Met, and nothing against these well-deserved performers who have spent their entire career just being amazing. But sometimes you hear performances at the Met, and whether fair or not, you wonder why there's, 20 baritones in New York City who could sing the crap out of that role better than the guy that's on stage who's 40 or whatever. So I think that this crop of singers that you belong to have incredible ideas about singing and technique specifically, and performing as well, and learning about your work ethic and, on how to prepare like we have so far, as well as, how it is you do the things physiologically that you do. And whether it's, for example, when I was first looking at Manus and I visited and had a lesson with Bonnie and with Arthur, you invited me to come into your lesson, which was so nice of you. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like the year before I came. And we went and got lunch, I think, after at Soup Stop or something like that, which is great. But you were singing, I think, Constanza's aria.
I remember.
Did you do that?
It was Constanza's aria. It was Aki Hiepte.
Yeah, and I was like, to that point, I mean, I had heard some good singers that were my age, but I didn't think that they were that good that existed at my age. Like, I was so blown away when I didn't think that was possible, like, at our age. And I was like, holy crap, this is the big time. Like, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I went to Manus. But
that's how I felt about the Manus singers. That's the exact reaction I had when I heard Manus singers. I was like, what am I doing here? The talent level is immense. It's
unbelievable. It's like truly the best of the best. And hearing you do that, I mean, like, my mind is going straight to technique. So like, you started singing, just first of all, the quality of your tone was, I don't know how to describe it in one word, but it was just so much better than what I had been used to hearing. And there are beautiful singers that I had heard and been around in LA, but I was, it was like, there's something about the teachers here, there's something about the talent here that gets this like star quality, tone quality, basically this international tone quality out of these young singers. Like, I don't know what's happening here. And not only that, but I had never really heard Constanza's aria before. I had immersed myself in tenor recordings, and that aria is so difficult and so just ridiculous that just to hear you sing it the way that you did, with such confidence and seemingly ease and such a grounded technique, it left a lasting impression, if you can't tell. But
thank you.
So I wanted to talk because I was thinking about honing in on kind of one aspect of technique with you, because you're like a full lyric soprano. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So a lot of what you have to sing are everything from the Countess, or something with maybe some fioratura, maybe Violetta and Mimi and things like that. So things that require a lot of long, high phrases, spinny pianissimos, coloratura at time. Extreme legato is probably the number one priority. And beauty of tone, of course. If we're thinking bel canto, it's you pretty much can't afford to sacrifice that. And you need stamina, and what I sort of honed it down to is breath support, I think. And it's such an abstract sort of concept that you hear support your sound all the time, but people say expand your diaphragm, tighten your abs, don't tighten your abs, keep your stomach out, suck it in. You hear all these different theories on open the ribs, close the ribs, stand tall, you can hunch over, weight on your heels, weight on the balls of your feet, so I want to know what you think sort of about breath support, how you're able to sing really high long phrases without sacrificing the tone quality, because that's one thing you notice right away with young singers is maybe they produce a beautiful tone, but if they don't have the support for it, that tone quality will start to diminish by the end of the phrase. And same thing with coloratura, they might start really accurate, but then by the end of the phrase they lose their accuracy, things like that. And so I just wanted to see if you can talk about, maybe let's start with legato, for example, or
just breath support in general.
Just breath in general. What do you think about with your breathing?
Well, this concept is for sure the first concept any singer needs to learn, and it's also the hardest one to maintain, because it's something that we struggle with every day. Like the way our body feels and moves changes every day, and so it's something that I personally think about every single day now. It's when I warm up, my first goal is to get on the breath, and so I do lip trills, tongue trills, like, to feel engaged, like hooked into my breath. And it's also something that when I'm singing an aria or a song, that it's what my mind's eye is thinking about every single note. If I disengage from the thought of breath, I will come off my breath, and that's just something that I struggle with, and that I would think other singers struggle with.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a struggle, because I frankly haven't bought this idea that it's possible to sing at an international level without having any technical thoughts. I think even the top singers have one thing. The best ones probably have one thing they're thinking about. Otherwise, it's like, how do you sing with vibrato? It's like, it's not like, it is a natural thing, but it's not going to be there without being hooked into your breath, as you say. Which leads me to my next question. Like, what do you mean by hooked into your breath? Like, let's keep it to someone who doesn't understand singing. How would you best describe, because for me, how I'm speaking right now, I can tell that I'm not supported. Versus if I'm speaking like this, I know that I'm supported, And so I'm like very much in the back of my throat right now. It's just how I naturally speak. I don't know if it's a California thing or whatever, but, we don't speak up like this, and we don't have very good support until, I don't know why I just embodied a mid-Atlantic accent for that. But you know what I mean. So what does it mean to be hooked into your breath?
It's funny. A lot of people would comment on my speaking voice because I'm a bit relaxed right now. But when I've had a voice lesson, or when I'm with other singers, I tend to have this kind of Julia Child's lifted soft palate speaking voice, and people have always made fun of me for that. And I think I don't even try to do it. It was a natural thing. Even when I first started singing, I would do that. So for me, breath support is taking in a natural breath with a, I'm slouched right now as I'm talking to you, but it's funny, I think I slouch a lot when I'm not singing, because when I'm singing, I'm constantly thinking about not slouching, so I feel exhausted, and in my normal life, I'm just, lazy about it. which is a bad thing. I should probably, be straight all the time. So I think about my posture and a low, deep breath.
Okay, that's what I want to get to. Like, describe this as best you can without using singer speak. So if you say something like low breath, what does that mean?
It literally means as low as like my pubic bone.
So do your lungs go down there? Because don't our lungs stop and that's where breathing happens, right? So what do you mean?
Correct. So the lungs do stop at a certain point, but the expansion of the body is still happening in the lower abdominal muscles. When I breathe, I feel movement from as low as my pubic bone to as high as my upper back, to the top of my lungs. I can feel expansion all around from my front and my back. And when I do take a breath for an operatic aria, every single breath involves those muscles. Every single muscle is engaged. Now I don't think about, on like a shorter phrase, I don't think about filling up, that much air, but my muscles are still engaged even if I'm not, tanking up, so to speak, on the air.
Okay, so I think I understand better exactly what you mean. So you're just, like, if you were to fully relax with a good posture, basically, and you're going to take a breath that's, I call it like an athletic breath, to go, like with our chest, and that's a high breath, basically, versus to be fully relaxed and to breathe sort of like the way that babies breathe when they're sleeping, type of a thing. You see their stomachs rise up and down? Yes. I think that's sort of what you're talking about, yeah? Yeah,
it is. And I remember even at Tanglewood we talked about baby breaths, like just lying down on the ground and experiencing what it's like to breathe.
Yeah. Essentially, it's the same thing what we do when we're sleeping. I mean, assuming, snoring and stuff is something after the fact, but like inhaling, it happens because we're completely relaxed, and that can be a tricky thing. So, okay, so we've taken our breath, and so now how do you use it when you sing? Like, do you feel like you're exhaling and sound is riding on top of that stream of air, or do you feel like, I don't know, tell me.
Well, it's the sound is made from the voice box. Like the sound is initiated from our throats, but the air, passes up through the windpipe and sends the sound, ricocheting off of all the bones in our face and body. The sound comes out of our face, out of the top of the head, out of the back of the head. That's where the sound resonates. But yeah, of course, the sound is initiated from the throat. We just don't want our muscles getting in the way of that. So like that's where vibrato comes from, like the free movement of air. So I know this is like the most complex thing to talk about.
I know, but it's you are the exact person I want to be putting on the spot about this, because someone who's singing really well, singing very difficult music, just to get what's going on in your head and how you think about things. Even though I know we're sort of looking at it through a very fundamental window, like trying to explain it to someone who's never really thought about it at all before. I think it's important to understand what you think about this. And so
so when I breathe, every breath that I take before a phrase of music, I almost feel like I'm about to hold my breath. And of course it's on the more difficult arias, I employ this specific thing that I'm about to talk about. Like, for example, in the Countess's aria, Dove Sono, it's such a difficult aria, and it requires, long legato singing. So before I begin, I I'll breathe in a full, relaxed, deep breath, and then it's almost like I'm holding my breath for a second to create, like, the tension needed to release a steady, small stream of air, like I'm blowing through a straw, in order to keep my muscles from expanding and staying outward, because I believe in, like, appoggiare, the technique where you're kind of, like, pushing out, like, staying expanded, the rib cage is staying expanded, and then a small stream of air is allowed to pass through, and while you're singing, the air is slowly escaping, but your entire body is still engaged and expanded, allowing you to use that little breath of that little stream of air to continue for a long phrase. Because if you just breathe in and then release and collapse, there's nowhere for the air to go. We need that tension to push upon in order to let the airstream be slow so that you can sing a long phrase. Does that make any sense? I don't know. It's
so to me it seems like, I think the key in what you're saying is it's more like a feeling of holding our breath, I think. At least in the beginning, that we establish this equilibrium that we need. Like it's just like when you have you blow up a balloon before you've tied the knot, and you're just like pinching it to right before you tie the knot.
Yes.
And you can go like this and go bzzz, bzzz, and just a tiny bit of air comes out, just enough to make it vibrate. It's not where you let go and it goes.
Exactly. And that's and
farts.
so many beginning singers have that effect where they let all the air out of the balloon and it makes the farting noise. But we want we want the slow stream of air. It's exactly like that. I've never heard it compared to a balloon like that, filled with a balloon with helium. That's exactly how I feel when I'm singing. Like each phrase I let out a little bit of air, but my entire body is so expanded and so ready to sing anything that from one breath of air I could sing a short phrase, a long phrase, a really difficult phrase with fioritura or high notes, but it's all the same because like my body is just like so prepared for that. And of course that it takes breath support, but it also takes technique, because I wouldn't be able to sing the fioritura notes without having like fully and completely prepared those pitches in my mind and throat. So it's a combination of course of technique and breath support.
I think a lot of times with young singers they can yell very pretty, and like myself, for example, like I could make it through arias, but that's all it was. It was just making it. It was just making sound at this frequency, but it wasn't a well-informed, supported sound that I would be able to do for very long. In my life, I wouldn't be able to make sounds the same way for very long. And it wasn't until really Manus, my teacher at Manus. I had good teachers before that I hold on to ideas from, but when I studied at Manus, and it was the first time I had thought about when you sing higher, it doesn't mean you're blowing more air through or like getting louder or something. And so my teacher honed in on that with me, that's what I was trying to do. Like I could only sing them loud. And he was like, no. So we would do these exercises where you'd sing, just like an arpeggio up an octave or something, and the first note would be forte, but then you'd have to decrescendo as you get higher and higher and higher, for example, or just go up the scale, and that helped so much. And he would say, just keep it the same volume. Don't get louder. Don't get louder. Don't get louder. We don't need to. Just rely on that breath pressure. You might feel more pressure inside, but you're not blowing air, or you're not squeezing to get that last. So you're nodding. So I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, I'm totally in agreement with this. Yeah.
Because I think it's so common for young singers to think that they have to like do this sort of like blow the air out to make the voice happen type of thing, and they think that because it takes a lot of energy, and I did it this way for when I was young. I feel like I've sung every wrong way in the book, so this is one of them.
Haven't we
and
all?
Like, I know, yeah. So when I was doing it that way, I thought it was supported because it takes a lot of energy to do that, and I'm like, well, my body's working, isn't this support? But it's not. So we determine it's more of like a breath holding type thing, keeping it in. So specifically, like, does the feeling change for you? We talked about like singing high notes and that it's, we don't use any more air or anything, but like maybe there's a difference in air pressure, but does anything change for you? Like, I want to know, singing like pianissimo phrases, for example, like how are you able to do that? Because I know you can spin things very well and very quietly, and that's something you can do well. And so what's that experience like for you? Do you feel like it's less volume or it's a different color? Because I've heard both sort of takes on what pianissimo singing is from different teachers.
Yeah, it's funny, I always feel like no matter how do I say this? No matter what volume I'm singing at, I'm spinning the air, or at least I'm thinking about involving my breath engagement. I'm no matter what, if I stop thinking about the lower half of my body, I will lose the connection, and especially singing pianissimo. Mm-hmm. So if I think I wanted to clarify this before, like when I said that I feel like I'm holding my breath in order to sing. I don't want to say that I stop moving my air. It's I take in a lot of air and control the way it escapes, but at the same time there's constant awareness and flow and like bouncing of air. Like I actually can re-engage on every single note that I sing, re-engage from my diaphragm and my lower abdomen. So it's a continual bouncing of air, and when I sing pianissimo, it's even more bouncing, spinning of air it's almost like Bonnie Hamilton used to say, like screaming but with no sound coming out. It's like you're sending so much focused, concentrated air out, spinning air, but just with the thought of it being quieter. So yeah, I guess you could say it's more of a color. It's an effect. And the only thing that changes is
No, I think that's a great illustration, though. To borrow Bonnie's words there. I mean, when you sit and think about that, it seems to make a lot of sense. And sometimes it gets confusing, and I think it's mostly for showmanship and when a performer embodies the character that they're performing. When you see this is kind of a long thing to explain, but like when you hear Bonnie say it's kind of like screaming with not as much sound coming out, you think of a big open mouth or an open space of someone screaming, right? And that's probably the proper way to get a hold of this concept. But a lot of times you see people sing pianissimo phrases, maybe they're smiling, but the position on the inside is nice. And I see it with I'm thinking of, like, I don't know what aria it is, but I've seen Renee Fleming do this in videos where she'll, like in Depuis le Jour, there's a video of her singing this on YouTube, and at the end, d'amour, she does it with a really closed mouth, and it gets really pianissimo, and she'll even like smile while she says an oo vowel. And I don't know, I just think it can get tricky when you're learning how to do this and you see someone do that and you can think, oh, maybe they just close their mouth to do pianissimo, and that's, it's to understand the process that goes on underneath. A lot of young singers, I think, also think that singing happens in the mouth. Color happens in the mouth, but I think the important thing is the throat and the body, what's going on in there.
Oh, wow.
And so,
well said. Yeah. I think when a young singer needs to learn about opening up the mouth and no matter what, because our tendency is to close the mouth, for in any situation. If we're singing a scale, if we're singing an aria, the tendency is to let the jaw grab. And once we get past like the intermediate stages of singing where you don't have to think so much about keeping your mouth open, when you move into like a more sophisticated territory like Renee Fleming singing, the way she's able to do something like d'amour and then keep her mouth closed is because the space is on the inside. Everything is happening in her, in the center of her mouth. There's a lift in, the soft palate area, and so she has trained her muscles to respond that way. So even though her mouth is closed, there is a hell of a lot of spinning and space happening to create that effect. So I guess it depends on the phrase of music, because in a Puccini aria versus a Mozart aria, I would say like I would tend more to open up my mouth singing a Puccini phrase with a loud or a soft climatic phrase, because I'm looking for a fuller sound. But if I'm singing a Mozart aria, something like Achillipte, and I'm going from low to middle range to high range to middle range, I probably wouldn't be opening and closing my mouth as much, because I would have practiced and worked on keeping the mouth position the same to make it easier to go, I would want the space to be happening in the inner, in the inside, in the mouth, rather than trying to contort my mouth into different shapes to get the space.
Exactly.
So,
and I think even the public that doesn't understand singing technique, they understand that it's a very impressive thing that's happening when you hear someone like Renee Fleming say d'amour while she's going like this, d'amour, or like giving a big smile. It's like because it doesn't seem to make sense. Like, how is this deep, round, warm, pointed forward vowel coming out when someone's smiling, but also it's spinning at piano. It's a lot of even Renee Fleming says that opera is like the Olympics of singing, and it's because they do crazy things like that. And it seems very simple, but it's like it's not the high note or anything. It's just right in the middle of your range, and just something as simple as that can be extremely effective. And so I think it's my dog barking, but I think it's very interesting to look at that. And obviously we can't cover like pianissimo singing in a 5-minute, this is how you do it, but I do think that illustration that you shared of Bonnie's is vivid and poignant, I think is the right word. Like, it's easy to understand. And then one more go ahead, sorry. Well,
no, just like you were saying, like the softer you sing, the more air and spin you have to give out. It's like the more energy you have to have in your body, because it's like you said, our younger singers think it's so, like, it would be the natural instinct would be to like give up or to give less, or it's the opposite. You have to give more until there is no more to give, and that's when you can sing pianissimo.
Exactly.
Because it's the energy behind it. It's the energy behind the sound.
Yeah, exactly. Or the position behind the mouth, and all of the above. It's not, to relate it back what we were talking about. Okay, and then the other thing I'm so curious to talk to you about is stamina. Like, how do you keep your breath relaxed, or how do you last through Dove Sono, for example? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. How I get out of breath listening to someone as great as like Kirita Kanawa singing that, or Renee Fleming, that was like her signature as well. And when I heard you do it with Loft, it was not, extremely difficult, but like, it was the same effect. Like, it's beautiful, but you're just like, how is this person doing this right now? Because I can't imagine. I mean, does that take a lot of focused training, or is there something specific you do in that aria that you don't maybe need to focus on in others?
Well, first of all, that aria is so scary. Like, and anyone who sings that aria would agree, I would think. It's because it's so exposed and there are so many long lines and phrases. So if you're having an off day, it just could be the end of you. It's like it's just one of those arias. I definitely think more about onset of tone when I'm doing that aria. Like I was alluding to earlier with when we talked about the balloon, blowing up a helium balloon and then holding it and then opening it up slightly and letting the air stream come out slowly. I think a lot about that in that aria.
Like saving every molecule of air that you possibly can. Not letting anything escape that's not being used.
Yes.
Everything.
And I'm also thinking about my back and just like keeping it expanded and spinning the air, spinning the phrases so that it sounds legato.
But like in that aria specifically, it's difficult enough the first half, but the second half, Mozart's just kind of being a dick and, links those two phrases together and doesn't give you the chance to breathe, when you reprise it or whatever. So it's already been difficult. Like, how are you supposed to, I think what I'm asking is like, for me, if I were to sing that, I would imagine that I would have to be extremely focused on every single breath that I take to make sure it's low, because I feel like I would be hiking up or something. I would just start panicking type of a thing, whether I'm with myself, but especially if I'm actually given the task to perform that in front of an audience. So like, what is your thought process, when you get to these really daunting moments that are coming up? Like, do you experience fear, I guess, when you're performing? Because it seems like you don't, to be able to do that.
Yes and no. I'm one of those performers that I eat up every moment. I love performing, and it's easy for me. I'm lucky in a sense because I find that Zen place where I don't think about anyone judging me, and I just think about delivering the art, and that's somehow what I've always done since when I began performing, and I'm able to just go to that place. Like, I don't let myself have an option, and that has always helped me. That has always helped me conquer nerves and avoid the fear of how difficult some of these arias are. That being said, I've had moments where I can feel my breath stacking, and it is, it's very scary. And I don't think I've ever like really let it compromise a performance. If I feel like, winded, or if I'm getting out of breath, which doesn't often happen, but it happens to everyone. I just, like you said, I go back to that place of, you know, calming myself and taking low, deep breaths and, like, finding a way just back to, you know, just releasing. And
emotionally and physically and stuff, just to get to that relaxed Zen spot.
Yeah. Because once you get to this spot of judgment or worry or you know, it's easy to, like, start panicking, and then it's hard to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know that spot very well. I feel like I was always, something in my technique was always changing, and I never felt like, at least while I was in school for a long time, not until the very end, I was always uncertain about things. And so there was always that feeling of, like, here it comes in a performance, you know, here it comes. Oh, I did it, you know, or like, oh shit, that was bad, or, you know, so, but you just gotta keep going. So, I mean, I'm, again, super envious that you were able to find that place early on, because it's like, I think it's important that, you know, singing is so psychological and emotional, of course, but I mean, how you're thinking about what's going on in your head is so important, and I think if you let that negative stuff creep in, it's going to be an uncomfortable thing for not only you, but maybe the audience as well.
It is so psychological. Oh my goodness. It's amazing how psychological it is. And my father is a psychoanalyst, and he taught me from a young age to self-love, and I think that I've brought that to my singing, and I'm grateful to my dad for that, because that's another way that I'm able to not judge myself, like, during a performance, and just to let go and not to listen to myself. And of course we need to we always need to have, you know, our mind's eye kind of, like you said, thinking a little bit about the technique at some point. But honestly, I really try to do that in the practice room. I try to do the analyzation of everything, and just, like I said, practice phrases over and over and over again, time willing, so that I've practiced it so many times that, and not to the point of tiring. I don't want to say that I practice, like, more than 2 hours in a session. Like, I'll do it a very, like, specific and concentrated practice, like, not the whole piece from beginning to end. Like, I'll be like, okay, I need to work on this phrase and this phrase so that in performance it goes well. Like, I'll do specific detailed work like that, because just doing something over and over and over again is, like, you know, beating it to death, and that's no good either. But to do the really difficult phrases and to build confidence in the practice room, you should be able to transfer it into a performance if you can keep the nerves at bay, if you can stay calm. And there are days when I rarely get nervous anymore, because, like I said, at Boston University, doing that performance class, like, really changed things for me. Like, if you perform a lot, you know, every day, every other day, a couple times a week, for months on end, it becomes a habit, it becomes routine, and one could hope that you know, stop being nervous if it becomes like having lunch or, you know, waking up in the morning. It's just like a habit. So if you practice diligently and trust in the performance, it hopefully works. I mean, I can't say that it works the same for everybody, but I've been lucky enough that I can, you know, execute at least 85% of what I practiced. And sometimes it goes better and sometimes it goes worse, but I won't know until I've listened to a recording I refuse to let myself judge it in that moment and just enjoy the art of performing.
Yeah, I mean, it does take a discipline, though, because when you have it's a different kind of discipline, because when you're working so many hours in the practice room and you're doing that kind of judgment, and we don't get as much time performing it, actually. So if you're able to take that step and say, no, I'm not going to listen to it, I'm just going to give into it, I mean, that is can only come with experience. And if you weigh the amount of time, like that we spend in practice rooms versus performing, it's I mean, a lot of times it separates however you judge success, but the ones that keep getting rehired from the ones that don't, because if you can tap into that quickly, then that will, you'll be doing your job as as a server of art, as opposed to, someone who's just there to show off. And there are those moments too, of course, but you can always tell when a singer, I mean, as a singer, it's easy to tell when another singer is listening to themselves while they sing, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Sometimes it's still effective, I think, but it's much more effective to see someone in theater, and then you kind of forget sometimes that they're singing because it's just good theater and it sounds beautiful. That's, I think, what it needs to be. So, and like also with your voice, I mean, you are such an effective performer because you have it comes across as so natural, but it also comes across as very well informed at the same time. So it's like what you do is, from my perspective, it's a very natural, well informed presentation of what the character is and stuff. And so it's like exactly what you're doing, but you're also like fully in it at the same time, to where, I don't know, it's just a very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that's like the hugest compliment I've ever received. Thank you so much for saying that.
Oh, I mean, it's true. I mean, but I love singers and stuff, and obviously, like, it's such a subjective thing, that I have my opinion, and I know others that have been probably as deeply impressed with your performances as I have been. But I mean, that's just what I think, and I'm only going to try to interview, for example, this podcast, people that have moved me like that. And so, I mean, but that's why you're my first soprano. I mean, you were the first like soprano I heard in New York, basically, like up close, and that just like left me with this like, jaw to the floor impression, like, where am I? This is a new game, so so anyway, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Of course, I'll give you another thank you, but it's time to get to the opera quiz.